Good morning. Thank you for joining me for this update for our local response to COVID-19 in Duval County. I'm going to provide a few brief updates before turning it over for questions. Joining me on the call today is City Council President Scott Wilson, Vice President Tommy Hazouri, Director Bruno from the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, Fire Chief Keith Powers, Emergency Operations Center Director Woodard, Director of Intergovernmental Affairs Jordan Ellsbury, and Deputy Chief Administrative Officer Stephanie Burch to join in the question and answer session. As of this morning, the Florida Department of Health is reporting 1,001 positive cases of COVID-19 in Duval County, 101 hospitalizations and 20 deaths. Our percentage of positive test results is 4.5%. This number has steadily declined for the last 3 weeks. Because of the positive direction of these trends, I am taking the next steps towards getting our city gradually and cautiously back to work. Today, I will be amending my executive order pertaining to restrictions on beaches and repeal the order on hotels and lodging. Let's talk about lodging first. You may recall when these orders were put into place, Florida was inundated with out-of-state tourists for spring break, many in South Florida. In order to keep our county, hotel, and lodging establishments from being overwhelmed by these individuals, I issued Executive Order 20-4, restricting the types of lodgers they could accommodate. That is no longer a threat we face. Also, the state order that we are still under provides guidance that we exceeded in this order. This action aligns Jacksonville with state orders. I will work with Visit Jack's leadership and lodging industry to provide assistance and guidance as we do this in a safe and sensible way. Beginning Monday, May 4th, our beaches will be open all day from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m., but restrictions on allowed activities will remain in full effect. Only recreational activities consistent with social distancing will be permitted, such as walking, biking, hiking, fishing, running, swimming, walking pets, and surfing. This is not a time to gather in groups. This is for exercise. No congregating on walkways or crossovers. No sunbathing. Towels, blankets, chairs, coolers, or grills are not allowed. The 3 beaches mayors and I are grateful with how the public has responded to the restrictions in the past and ask them to continue to do so and not ruin this for everyone. Yesterday, I spoke directly to retail, lodging, and restaurants and advised them to begin formulating plans for resuming operations that incorporate proper social distancing and CDC sanitation guidelines. We remain under the governor's safer at home order that is set to expire this Thursday. Because we're under that order, at this point, we cannot provide an exact date until that order is amended or extended, which will be by this Thursday. We are coordinating with the governor's office on how we get certain non-essential businesses back to work, and we hope to be able to announce detailed information and a timeline by the end of this week. It is my hope and intentions that certain essential businesses return to business next week with strict social distancing guidelines and CDC sanitation guidelines I referenced yesterday. My team will update our resources page with information and guidance at coj.net/recovery resources. Again, we remain under a state safer at home order that expires Thursday. We're collaborating with the governor. Once that has been amended or extended or expired, then we can give a very specific date about which non-essential businesses go back. It's my goal to have some back next week. For larger venues, such as movie theaters and other non-essential businesses, such as gyms, nail and hair salons, we'll need a little bit more time to plan and prepare. And I will work it to be consistent, again, with what our governor and our state does on all of these non-essential businesses. Yesterday, City Council voted to approve 2020-235, allocate $159 million in federal dollars to support COVID-19 response efforts and provide needed support to our citizens. I'm grateful for the strong support from my colleagues on council and look forward to getting this assistance to the people of Jacksonville. There's a lot of good things in this bill, but two standout parts are the individual assistance and the expansion of testing in Duval County. This bill will allow us to lead the way on testing. We will be able to significantly expand our testing operations for the next 6 months, which will provide the critical data we need moving forward in the days and weeks ahead. As for individual assistance, we're currently training city employees on how to process applications, distribute the cards. We'll have more information on how citizens can apply by the end of the week and hope to start distributing this weekend. Stephanie Burch from my team is on the call and can answer more specific questions on that program. Before I sign the bill, I'd like to ask my colleagues from City Council to say a few words. I'll start with Council President Scott Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor. And I'd just like to bringing this bill forward. This bill is very important to the citizens of Jacksonville. As I go out in the community, there's many people hurting very badly, and hopefully these additional funds will help them bridge the gap, make their mortgage payment, rent payment, utilities, and buy groceries from local stores. So thank you for that. I'm also thankful to see that the hotel industry will be coming back to accepting room nights again. It's an industry that has been crushed recently by the changes over the last month or so. And I've talked to many of the hoteliers, and I know they are going to be extremely excited. So thank you for that. I look forward to working with you and partnering with you to make sure that that happens. So thank you.
Thank you, Council President. Vice President Hazouri.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you again, too, for what you're doing today in slowly but very carefully opening back Jacksonville. We are ahead of the game, and I think because of your leadership and your staff and the City Council and the first responders are all doing an outstanding job in moving us forward. Yesterday, we did pass a bill after great discussion, input from not just our City Council, but from your staff over the weekend and throughout yesterday afternoon. It was outstanding. And I think what we have is a very balanced $150 million program. A quarter of that, $40 million, is going to the $1,000 incentives or stimulus for 40,000 individuals here in Jacksonville. It's just a compliment to what I think the federal government is doing right now. But I think it's important that the businesses, the small businesses, the large businesses, we're reinvesting back into our budget by getting reimbursed from the federal government of this $160 million so that we can move forward. We know that our budget's going to have a tremendous impact negatively this year over the past years, and to fill in those blanks, I think, is very important. And this amount of money does help us do that and repaying back all the dollars that we're spending from testing on. And I thank you again. I've been very impressed with the partnership we've had with your office, with the leadership of Scott Wilson and the rest of the City Council. And let's move forward, citizens. I think that the best is yet to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Hazouri. I will now sign the bill. And again, I want to thank Council President, Vice President, for your leadership and the entire body for moving quickly on this, understanding that we're in a crisis and we need to get relief to people and testing set up rapidly. So thank you for your leadership. Before I turn it over for questions, a few reminders. A list of resources for individuals and businesses is frequently updated on our website, coj.net/recovery resources, including information on social services, financial relief, mental health, counseling, trauma support, and disaster loans. Remember, tonight at 7 o'clock, please continue to call somebody, reach out to them and touch base with them. I've tried to be consistent with that. And the days that I get it in, I know I've touched someone and they've touched me. With that, we'll take questions. Jim with WJXT.
Mayor, I got to ask you on the reopening order. I know it all depends on the governor, of course, but if this were to happen and you had your wishes, what are some of the businesses, say restaurants, that you would like to see open on Monday?
Well, Jim, until we get to more specificity with the governor's order on Thursday, I don't want to. When we roll it out, it's going to be locked down and solid with guidelines. We're going to need to give people some time to prepare. So if we learn something today, it's earlier next week. If we don't learn something until Thursday, it'll be a little later next week. But the goal is to get a significant number of non-essential businesses back to work next week. And I previewed some of that yesterday, telling people to prepare. The most important thing that we do, though, is we do this in a way that allows social distancing and proper sanitation is taken throughout the course of the day and hours of operation. Ann with First Coast News.
Good morning, Mayor. I had a question for you about what enforcement you think will be necessary, and possibly a question for Director Bruno on that same front. My request to JSO indicates that they haven't issued any citations for what they're categorizing as a Signal 24B, which I believe is a complaint about not observing social distancing.
Look, we're not a police state. We're elected officials. We're not dictators. We've been acting under emergency orders to flatten the curve, and we've done that. We just need people to be personally responsible. The enforcement is certainly an option under the law, but we want people to get back to normal, a sense of normalcy, and just be responsible. That's the ask. And Jacksonville's demonstrated they can do that, and I believe they're going to continue to do that. Director Bruno, do you want to add on?
Yeah, so as we've mentioned in press conferences before, when we go out, we have officers that go out to the scenes of when people aren't practicing social distancing, and they address the issue, and we're getting compliance. I mean, we educate way before we take the enforcement action. Obviously, enforcement action is always on the table, but when we go out, we've always gotten compliance with the groups and been able to address what we need to.
Bridget with Action News.
Hi, a couple questions. Do you anticipate any issues with the volume of people who are trying to get the stimulus money, and the $20 million operating city facilities as part of the stimulus bill? How will that process work? Will they have to apply for that? Do you anticipate the JAGS getting any money from that? And then the last question is for Director Bruno, and it is about the evictions. Any discussion on extending the eviction suspensions because so many people are still having issues getting their money?
First, I'll say in terms of getting people in to get their stimulus cards, very organized, done in a very safe way. We can get you the video of it if you don't have it. A walkthrough will be done by appointment. Will be heavily sanitized as people move. Masks will be utilized on both ends. So there will not be masses of people crowding any space at any given time. Jordan and Stephanie, I'll let you take the specific parts of the question on process, and then Director Bruno to you on, I believe it was on evictions.
Sure, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is Burch. On the process for the payment cards, as the mayor stated, we have a very organized process laid out. The main thing that we ask is for just a little bit more patience from the public as we get the system set up and ready to start taking appointments. You know, it will be ready in very soon in the coming days, and we'll be ready to go very quickly here. But we just ask that people wait for that appointment system to be up and running so that we can lay this out in the process that we've built at this point to ensure that everything goes smoothly. The main thing is people show up at their appointment time, not early, follow our instructions for social distancing and all of the processes that we have in place. As soon as we're able to announce the website, we will do so. And at that point, we'll be ready to go with implementing the process and getting the appointment set, and then checking the documentation for the applications for all the paperwork, and then distributing the cards. And I'll turn it over to Jordan for the 20 million.
Yeah, thank you. As it relates to the 20 million in organizations that are eligible to apply, right now the administration is reaching out, soliciting to entities that we currently do business with and receiving proposals as to kind of what their revenue impacts have been related to COVID-19. But at the end of the day, after we kind of formulate what the need is and the bounds of that 20 million, we'll bring it back to City Council for their full consideration.
To answer the question in regards to the evictions, one of the early steps in that process is that the paperwork is filed with the court and with the judges who review all of that information to make sure that the lawful process is being followed. Once the judge signs off on that information, it comes to the sheriff's office to serve that eviction process. In mid-March, the chief judge suspended that process. So we have not been serving any evictions since that time.
Megan with Action News.
Hi, Mayor. Thank you. So I have a few questions here. Obviously, we need to wait to hear what the governor says, but how can businesses prepare in the next coming days? What kind of restrictions would you like to see when they do open? Do you anticipate any issues with people waiting in long lines outside of restaurants, or, you know, how can people wear masks when they're eating dinner? And then lastly, what are you hearing from businesses and health leaders as we start to reopen the economy here?
Yeah, so we do have some guidelines from Florida Restaurant and Lodging Association that we'll be utilizing, which will incorporate sanitation, ability to space tables out. I can tell you that lines of people that are not properly distanced is not an option. So we're going to have to issue some guidance, and restaurants are going to have to prepare a way to not have masses of people standing in line or coming in a door at the same time. That's going to include all entry points as we begin to open other things as well. Here's what I don't want to do to businesses, because it'll create an extra headache for them. Thursday is 2 days away. That's when the governor's executive order expires. He'll do something with that order. If I make decisions right now on what businesses can do next week, and it's inconsistent with his order, the plans that they will begin to make will have been a waste of time, energy, and resources. So the best thing is for us, we're working with the governor's office, by the way, collaborating. I've spoken to him. I spoke to his chief of staffs last night and again this morning before the governor went to Washington to be with the president. So once we have collaborated with them and he moves on his executive order, we can move in a way that is consistent. And then any ability we have to make decisions that are not specific to statewide, we'll be able to do that as well. But to do that right now would be asking businesses to take action in a way that could be inconsistent with a state order. Tim, Jack's Business Journal.
Two questions. One on the business grant funds. I know these are for businesses that do work with the city. What type of companies are you envisioning, or nonprofits are you envisioning there? Obviously, the symphony and ones like those have been mentioned, but are there particular types of businesses that you're seeing there? And then second question on the lease moratorium. Is that envisioned to apply to organizations like the Jaguars and the Shrimp?
Jordan and Stephanie, I'll let you guys take those questions, please.
Yeah, thank you, Tim. I'll take that one. The first bucket of money you referenced related to the 20 million in entities like the Symphony. What we would forecast are entities kind of like the Jacksonville Zoo, or entities that manage our facilities on our behalf, where we have contracts with various entities that maybe manage our golf courses that have been impacted related to the regulations from the state and local governments, as well as just the overall pandemic. But as for entities pursuing the mobility fee waivers or building inspections, as stated yesterday at the council meeting, these would be entities that have a focus on retaining or creating jobs related to economic development, and they'll certify they're doing that. So when we look at the types of businesses, anyone that is developing in our community, building, contracting, tradesmen, these entities would be eligible. They just need to show the city that they're keeping, maintaining, or creating jobs associated with the project.
Guy with WJCT.
Hey, I believe this would be for Ms. Burch, and she kind of touched on it a little bit already. So there is no current timeline for when this website will be up, and I also wanted to ask about, will the website be set up the same time that the phone lines are set up, and the partnership with JTA as well?
Sure. Yes. I'll take that, Mayor. Thank you. So yes, the website will be up in the coming days. We committed to City Council yesterday that it would be within 7 days from yesterday. So that's our timeline right now. Yes, also we've got the partnership worked out with JTA. That will be ready at that time as well. And then we will obviously have 630 City staffed up to take any kind of phone calls that may come in for people who don't have online access. We are trying to direct everybody to get their appointment online if they have, if it's possible for them. But for anyone who it's not, then they can certainly call 630 City, and the customer service representative will enter the info for them on the public facing site.
Alex with First Coast News.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, you mentioned that there's going to be city employees being trained to help handle the applications. Is that a lesson that we learned from the state and how things were handled early on with unemployment?
No, the city of Jacksonville has planned all through this crisis, and we do things methodically. We do them with a plan, and that's why we're rolling that out this way. And safety is of the utmost importance. Christopher Hong, Florida Times Union.
Hey, Mayor, I know that you've said you don't know what the reopening would look like next week, but I just want to talk about what's your comfort level right now? I mean, if restaurants were to open limited, I mean, do you expect to take your family out to eat there, or like, what's your feeling and comfort level about returning to some sort of sense of normalcy? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I would be comfortable being in an establishment that could get me in the door without being within 6 feet of people, that could have me spaced where I was only with my family and not close to other people. And if the service provider were masked, that would also be a requirement. I would be comfortable with that. I would not be comfortable being in a crowd. I would not be comfortable being in my space or my family's space at this time. But I think that not only do I think we can do this responsibly, we have to not only do it responsibly, we have to do it both. There has to be perpetual lockdown is not gonna work. The virus is with us, so we've got to be able to move about and get people's businesses running so they can take care of their families, and we just are all going to have to be responsible individuals in this process. And let me add that this has been incredibly painful for so many people in this city. I know people are chasing unemployment checks, businesses smashed, people have had the COVID-19, people have died from COVID-19. There are people that are afraid to even go out of their homes. So, but there's light. There's light. We have the opportunity to take the lessons we've learned, the behaviors that we've done the last number of weeks responsibly, wash our hands regularly, cough or sneeze into your arm, be socially distant, wear a mask when you're in spaces where you are going to be in a confined space with people like a grocery store. And we can begin the road back to a people that are among each other with responsible behavior. Zac with WJXT.
Me? Mr. Mayor, thank you. My questions this morning are
We lost you. Sorry, we lost you. Jim with WJXT, this is the last question.
Well, Mayor, then a couple of things I did want to ask you, and I kind of know what Zac was going to be asking. It was for Director Bruno concerning a follow-up from the sheriff's statement on the jail situation. And, if testing is going on inside the jail, and are the prisoners, even at the Montgomery Correctional Institute, allowed to wear masks? I have a question regarding the stimulus situation, the payment cards coming out, how those actually can be redeemed. Will they have to go to a bank? Can they use them just like a credit card anywhere? Third question, JEA is also now discussing the future of Osiadacz, the interim CEO. And there's talk now, and this is going on right now, of bringing back Paul McElroy to be the interim director. Three things out there, but I guess those are what we want to find out.
Stephanie, I'll let you take the question on the stimulus.
Okay, sure. So on the payment cards, Jim, they will be able to be used at any kind of merchant as any type of payment card would normally be able to be used. We're not aware that they can be transferred at a bank. You know, for instance, if you take it into a bank and you try to move the money into your account, that will not work, and they will not be able to be used at an ATM. However, they can be used just like any other credit card with an online retailer or anywhere in person.
Or walking out with a card with $1,000 on it, is there a concern to what could happen and if they're lost?
There is a mechanism on their Jim where they will be able to have their card replaced. So there is that option for them if they lose their card. There are security measures in place for us to verify their identity when they call in, but they will be able to have that replaced.
Jail's question.
Yes, so there's been ongoing testing at the Department of Corrections in our jails and at our prison facilities. So that continues, and we've maintained a proactive position with that. But the reality of it is the men and women in corrections have done a phenomenal job, because testing is just one part of it. But what the process that they've put in place to keep the jail sanitized and everyone safe has been phenomenal.
Jim, I don't know if you asked me a question. I think you were maybe looking for reaction. Obviously, I don't see what's happening at the board meeting right now because I'm here with you in the public. As it relates to the two individuals you referenced, look, I have observed Melissa Dykes operate under stress and pressure. I think she's been a steady hand in this process. I have tremendous professional respect for her, and I have the same tremendous professional respect for Paul McElroy. So the board was recently appointed. They're independent, and it's their job to make these decisions. So wherever they land, I will be supportive of their decision, but I would say that have tremendous professional respect for both of those leaders. Thank you.